Hello, everyone. I am back finally after a couple of weeks. I am back. Now, today's review is going to be on the Transformers Studio Series Buzzworthy Bumblebee, Rise of the Beast Optimus Prime. So, here we are. There he is. Now, before I go on, yes, I am still editing stuff. And I will explain on a later post that will either be up posted either like after this review or before this review, explaining the whole situation with CapCut and everything, and how I realized that, oh wait, Canadians are okay. We don't get to experience the ban, but unfortunately people in the US have experienced it, but then all of a sudden, poof, it came back. Just out of sheer coincidence. We're not even out of sheer coincidence. It was just like out of I don't know, half a day, it just came back, and it was like, damn. I guess we were just grounded. We were put on timeout just for TikTok. So that's crazy. But anyway, yes, I will be doing Bloody Winter, and I will be doing that top 10 figures of 2024, which I will try and do. The photos for, and then get everything done. But anyways, yeah, over enough PSA. Here's a figure. Of course, I would show the box, but unfortunately, I don't have the box. I put the box with a lot of other boxes somewhere in a storage unit in my garage. And yeah, I do not want to go up there, climb a ladder, and then get it up there, and then get out the box and put it here. So I'll just put a screenshot right here of what it looks like, and I will admit it is really bland, it is really boring, and in a sense that I just don't like the yellow. I just don't like the whole yellow style. I get it's the whole point of Buzzworthy Bumblebee, but it kind of sucks. So yeah, so that's the box. So yeah, now let's move on to an overview of this guy. So if you know by now, this figure kind of has a very interesting history. First, we got, of course, before this figure was even released, let alone promo images were found. There was the mainline Rise of the Beast Voyager, which more or less felt like it was based off concept art rather than based off the actual movie design. I'll show right here. It was very different. And at the time, people ate it up. Now, I didn't eat it up because I just thought it looked really goofy. For me, it looked very small. The head sculpt looked very tiny. And that was my initial thought with this Optimus. But then after watching the movie and such, I came to realize it's actually pretty accurate. Even more, it's actually probably one of the more articulated versions of Optimus. So, of course, there's that. But then there was another curveball. And that was the fact that this was a Target exclusive, or a Toys R Us exclusive for here in Canada. I don't know where it was sold, though. So, yeah, it was really, really hard to find. Now, I will show pictures on screen here of my little texts I was in a group chat with. And, yeah, I basically said, I found it. I went to only one Target, asked one Target employee, hey, do you have this? I showed them, the barcode and everything. And he said, all right, let me go check to the back. And then all of a sudden he came back and he had like a whole box of I'm not even joking, a whole box of Transformers figure of this guy. And I was like, okay, thank you. And immediately I was sold. So there's that. Nowadays, you have a couple of options. There is a Wei Jiang exclusive, I think, or not Wei Jiang exclusive, a third-party figure on this, or third-party rendition of this figure. And as you know, as probably people saw in the Hasbro Pulse stream, there is, in fact, a package refresh on this. I will show a picture on screen, which with the much better packaging. So yeah, it gave a lot of people another chance to get it, and in my humble opinion, that is awesome. Because I'm going to explain to you why I think this is probably one of the best Optimus Primes I ever owned. So, of course, the main question to ask is this a good Rise of the Beast Optimus Prime to own? Especially because there's, of course, that package refresh / reissue, and there's a lot of other versions. Well, I'm going to explain to you in this review, starting off with the painting and the sculpting. Okay, so for painting and sculpting, I think the painting and the sculpting on this figure is actually really impressive. You know, you would think for a mainline thing, mainline figure, it'd be kind of bland, and then to an extent, it's missing, of course, that dry brushing. It's missing the finer details that you would see on the CGI model. But as a whole, it's a very nicely well-made figure and very nicely well-painted and sculpted. Starting off with the head sculpt, one thing, as I mentioned before, proportionally, my main issue with the main line is that it looked too small. And compared to the Bumblebee movie one, it looked too small. But I feel like with this, it feels somewhat proportionate. Now, granted, it still is a little tad bit small, but it looks nice. I love the details of his mask and the little intricate sculpt work on it. They still felt like they continued the design of Prime from that Bumblebee movie. They just modified it to some extent. So there's that. Overall, really nicely done head sculpt. Love the eyes. Maybe they could have used a little bit more gray, but it's awesome. Now moving on to his chest and the torso area, it's very nicely well done. You have this nicely painted silver that hasn't chipped in a while, and overall, I think the sculpt work is amazing, especially on his arms. Oh my goodness, like look at these arms. Everything, all it really needed was just a little bit more red paint here to match the consistency of the rest of his forearm. But overall, it's really good. And I think the transformation, we'll get there, but I think the transformation of this arm was really good. Now, granted, it definitely does leave a little bit of a kibble here. It kind of juts out, but I think they did the best they could. And I do like the back. It definitely looks fairly accurate to the movie, and of course for the Voyager budget they did all they could. Maybe I wish there was a little bit more gray, considering the fact that this is a fake. This part forms the front of the truck, and I really wish they could have just sealed the holes in there. And well, maybe this, but that's mainly if you have a stand for him. Excuse me. But yes. Overall, I really love the sculpt work on it. Especially on his arms. And then moving on to his torso, I really like it. The only issue is I wish we had an Autobot logo on the little center, if you could see right there. And even more, I wish we had a little bit more consistency of the paint over here. I really love the gunmetal gray, and I love the fact it's blending in. I just only wish that the gunmetal gray also matches with the rest of the body. But I don't think the bare plastic is that terrible. Again, it's a lot of red plastic gray and then gunmetal gray, especially when you go down to his shins. But overall, I really love the sculpt work on it. It's really nice, and I really love the paint as well on his shins. Again, my only gripe is maybe a little bit more silver on the feet. But overall, it's a very good figure. It definitely does its best for a main line figure. And overall, I just really love it. I think that, again, the most notable thing I love about this figure are the arms. It looks awesome. And even more, I love the structure of it. My only also sort of gripe is definitely the shoulders. Not because they're kind of wide, it's the fact that the smokestacks jut out so far that posing him, while is awesome, and we'll get there, the hindrance of this kind of makes it a bit finicky. So there is that. So overall, I think this Optimus Prime figure, in terms of painting and sculpting, is awesome. It's just perfect. A lot of good sculpt work here, a lot of great paint, and overall felt like they actually tried. Now, moving on to accessories, this figure only comes with 2 accessories, but if you do have the Optimus Primal figure, or maybe, I think, even Ape Link, he would have 3. That being his the third accessory being his battle axe. But for the main accessories, you do have a blade, and you do have his little ion blaster. Now, let's start off with the ion blaster. It's very nicely sculpted, don't get me wrong, but I do wish it was both A, bigger like it was in the movie, shown right here, and B, I really, really wished it was also that gunmetal gray. I think that's my overall issue with some of this. Like, this doesn't even look like the same accessory. It just looks, I mean, there's some nice detail like the gears and everything, but it just looks less like, you know, an actual, his actual little gun blaster hand from the movie, and rather, it just looks like a tiny pea shooter. Now, moving on to the blade, I do really love this thing. Although, in my humble opinion, I wish they could have added a bit of the orange on the trim and edge of the blade around this part right here. Around the bottom. Because if I remember correctly from the movie, it's been a while since I've seen it, but it really had a little bit of an orange glow similar to the Bayverse Prime. So I really wish it had that, but I'd also really like the detail over this. It's really nicely well done. Maybe it could have been a little bit bigger, and maybe it couldn't have these, of course, these blue ports, which I will explain late after this, but I do like it, and I do like it sort of extends a bit at the handle. So, and as I mentioned before, yes, these do go on the figure. Now, to simply put on the gun, it works on both hands, or both arms. You simply untab this flap. There's a little peg. You simply flip the hand, close the flap, and then you get his gun hand, and then done. Now, as for the blade arm, we went to the other side of the figure. There are multiple spots you can put it. As you see very, very closely, there is a peg hole there, and it's also the same on the other hand. Now, what is that peg hole for? Well, and this is where I think it kind of shocks me. You can simply peg in, there's of course this giant blue peg jutting out, simply pegs onto there, and boom, he has a blade. If you don't want that, if you want him to hold it, you can do that, and that's why it's a lot longer. And if you want him to just put it on his forearm, you simply just tab it in right there because of that blue mushroom peg. And it does work on this hand, however, with the gun arm extended on either, you have to kind of sort of peg it into the side if you want that to work, which I could totally see this working. And as for weapon storage, as I mentioned before, 5mm ports at the back, with maybe even smaller ones. So simply what happens is the smaller blade simply just pegs onto his back, or smaller ports, and then moving on to his blaster hand, it goes onto the smaller one too. I don't know what goes into the bigger ones. Maybe if you have other weapons, let's say, that fit it, but yeah, they only fit the small ones. Now, granted, accessories is very light for a Voyager. I wish he came with maybe that axe, which I know Primal had, but still, and even more, I wish it could actually tab into the back. Primal's that axe only specifically tabs into Primal, so it kind of sucks. And I also wish the gun hand was a little bit bigger, but I do think the sword is awesome. So yeah, overall, accessories are a bit lacking. I do wish, honestly, maybe had an alternate head where he's unmasked. And but other than that, it's phenomenal. I think, well, not phenomenal. I think could have had a little bit more. So, maybe 6 out of 10 for accessories. Now let's start off with, let's go over the best thing about this figure, and that is the articulation. So overall, articulation on this guy really surprised me. It's literally almost import, well, I'd say this, keyword, almost import level quality. This is like on the same level as a Marvel Legend figure, but again, almost import quality. First of all, head articulation is on a ball joint. Like so. He can look up this far, and he can look down this far. He could also tilt side to side and rotate all the way around. Now, this is where it sort of gets confusing with the shoulders. Because of how they were designed, they could still go 360, but they could only go up, which makes posing, like, let's say he's, about to shoot his arm cannon, it makes it a little bit weird because of these smokestacks. And if you want him to get a butterfly joint, you simply have to untap this, swivel his bicep, which is meant, this part here, which is specifically meant for the truck mode, and then you want to tab it back in, and then, yeah, it works to a very not so amazing extent. And you do get occasional moments where instead, if you want to turn the whole arm, you instead turn the whole joint. So overall, it's not really worth it, in my opinion. But the rest of it is pretty good, though. Starting off, of course, he has... Let me just focus on the camera. Go. He has a bicep swivel. He has a double jointed elbow, which is absolutely impressive. Please do this. And then, of course, he has a somewhat hinge on his wrists, which is more meant for the transformation. And, of course, a swivel on his wrists. Like so. He does have a waist swivel, which is awesome. And he also has an ab crunch, which is something I would never, ever think of an Optimus Prime figure, let alone a Transformers figure, having this level of quality, but it's impressive. Although, I will mention this, and this is a little PSA, and be careful when this, because, and I'll explain this in the transformation, you do get more here, even though it's meant specifically for the transformation, but mine seems to do that. It wants to slip off. So be careful when posing it, because you do get that. So, yeah, be careful. He also has a lot of leg articulation. Goes way, way past 90. And goes a somewhat okay back. The side skirts could move out to do a beautiful spread. Absolutely magnificent. He does have a very good thigh swivel. Only a single jointed knee. So yeah, thigh swivel, single jointed knee. And then he does have ankle pivot, which is impressive, and it doesn't fall apart like the Bumblebee movie one. So pivot, and it's also on a ball joint, so you can readjust it as you will. Posability, while at times a bit finicky, is awesome. You can get this guy into plenty of good poses. And this new articulation quality is so impressive to me. Hasbro, please do this. Please do this more often. And it seems like they are doing this because, of course, the Bumblebee movie Megatron seems to have this. And then, of course, I think, to my knowledge, I think Studio Series 86 has this level of quality. So please do this more. Do more of this, Hasbro. Do more of this type of figure. A lot more articulated. Now, as for size comparisons, Prime stands at almost around almost 7 inches, maybe 6 and, well, actually, yeah, almost 7, maybe 6.5, but yeah, he's a pretty decently sized figure. Here's some other size comparisons. Here is the Buzzworthy Bumblebee Rise of the Beast Optimus Prime compared to the Studio Series Transformers 1 Optimus. and the War for Cybertron trilogy, Earthrise Optimus, and Siege Optimus. Overall, he's a pretty nicely scaled figure compared to all these, although I will admit this guy needs a Voyager. Why was he a deluxe? I have no clue. But yeah, also, by the way, go check out this guy's review. And as for another comparison, here is the Buzzworthy Bumblebee Optimus Prime from Rise of the Beast compared to the Studio Series Bumblebee Movie Optimus Prime and the Studio Series Bumblebee Movie Megatron, the concept series. And yeah, these two I think scale really well, in my opinion, and also because of their new articulation engineering. But between these two, yeah, there's a lot of differences. Of course, these are very different designs, and I think this one was more based off concept. This one was kind of based on the somewhat final design, because those feet aren't accurate. I could say that for sure. Those feet for Optimus aren't accurate. For this one, at least. But overall, yeah, the head sculpts are different. There's a lot more gray and a lot more consistency here than this one. But I do prefer the sculpting more on here than here, in my opinion. The head sculpt wise, I still prefer this because of the articulation, but this one, it looks proportionally better, just because it's bigger. And in a sense, at least his articulation at the shoulders isn't hindered. Also, go check out this guy's review. I know it was like 4 years ago, or 5 years ago, but please go and check it out. So yeah, overall, he's a very good figure. He scales pretty well with others. Of course, I might need to scale him against Bumblebee for maybe the final comparison, but overall, he's awesome. He's a great, he scales pretty nicely. Now, moving on to the transformation. So, the transformation for this guy is a bit interesting. There are parts where it kind of is a bit questionable, and I think this is where we get to the main downsides of the figure. But overall, I do like the transformation. It's very complex, and it works very well. So, let's start off with the shoulders here. Shifting these little gray parts down. Same goes for here. And don't worry about the smokestacks moving. You can readjust them as soon as we get to the other parts. Then you want to open, of course, the gray flap and put in his hands. Then you would also want to, then moving on to the legs, you would want to untab the these little parts here, so you can move this whole shin piece up. And then you would want to flip this little blue piece and then do it, and then, swivel his foot and then tab it onto here. There are little peg holes on his feet. It's a little hard to see, but they are there. So do the same on the other side. There we go. Now moving back up to the upper body, you would want to flip the ab crunch joint up, flip out his wheels, untab his backpack, and of course you would want to swivel, or in this case you may want to remove it. Again, be careful. Now we are in almost halfway there. Untab his chest, move this flap up with some very nice detail on there, flip the head down, and then later tab the chest pieces. Overall, it's actually pretty good. And then moving on to the shoulder pieces, as mentioned before, they're on a separate piece. So shift down, and then there you go. Do the same on the other side as well. Then you would want to swivel his arms, and then, of course, untab the forearm. That way, it will tab onto the truck mode. tab onto the sides of the truck. And then, of course, you would want to flip down this Autobot logo and then flip down this little top panel, which will tab into here. Hold on. Yeah, that should be tabbing, but there would be like a little pop, but I guess not. Yeah, so as you see here, boop. Oh, yeah, there we go. And then you would do the same on the other side too. So here we go. And then finally you would want to bring up the truck grill and then boom, tab it right in the front. Now you're almost done. So, and then moving on to his legs, you tab them in, boom. And then these little shoulder things, or his little side skirts, there is a peg hole in there. So you want to tab that in. And then afterwards, after everything is all arranged, you would want to move the shin pieces up to the front. That way it will kind of secure the truck. I might have to go off camera, but yeah. And then, of course, flip out the smokestacks, and then you're done. That's the transformation. So overall, the truck mode is honestly the biggest flaw with this figure. Because on one hand, you have a very good truck mode. Now granted, there are some gaps here on the side that kind of annoy me, but in the end, it's all covered by this gray bumper. Oops. And overall, the detail on the wheels and everything is very nicely well done. It's very good. I love the details as well. But then there is some mismatched paint, of course, up here and up here. I do wish this part was red, but this one, I can excuse it being just completely gray. But then as soon as you move to the side, the back, it's like, okay, this thing barely even looks like a truck. I don't know what happened to the engineering, because you have so much good stuff here. You had so much unique engineering at the front. And then as soon as you get to the back, it's like, oh, it's very lazy. It's so sad. Like, really? This is the best you could do? They don't even sit. There's no trailer hitch or anything. Not even at least the Bumblebee movie one had one. This one, there's no trailer hitch. And the shins just splay out there. I've seen, and I think that is due to these pieces here. Because it's like, oh, without that, then it kind of ruins the thing. So I feel like if you can maybe get that upgrade kit, I think DNA Design is doing, where it fixes the whole hitch problem and it allows the shins to stay flush. And I think it also modifies the feet to the fold even more. So, yeah, I do think that is a bit lazy on Hasbro's fault, and it doesn't really help, especially with a weapon storage. There are little peg holes on the side there, if you can see it. If you can see it correctly, there are peg holes there. And this is meant to fit his blade, which can simply slot right into here, like so, and as I fudge it in there. And it just sits there. It doesn't do anything. It just sits there. It looks sad and lazy. And there is a peg hole here on the top of his shin just to attach the gun hand. That is kind of sad for weapon storage. In my opinion, it's pretty sad. So overall, it's kind of sad overall. But in the end, it's a very decent looking truck. Okay, hold on. I don't know why it's not pegging in, but And this is why I never script it, but still, it's not pegged in. But it can roll. Trust me, it can roll. I don't know what's going on, though, with the shims. And I am going to have to transform this again. No. I won't really do any size comparisons because I don't want to transform all of these guys. Especially that Megatron. But yeah, overall, truck mode is a bit of a flaw, bit of a 50-50, but overall, it's pretty decent. It's a very mean looking truck, but it's not that bad. Now let's convert this guy back into robot mode. Converting him to robot mode is just as intricate as converting him into truck mode, just with more uniqueness and less laziness. So first thing you need to do, untab the top. So we could set up everything, including untabbing the side pieces and untabbing the shoulder parts. And this is where long nails will really kind of help just prying this out. But if you don't have that, you can use a part separator, which I don't have at all. Flip these little canisters down, and then untab the bumper. You would also then want to untab the shins so you can move on later to the other stuff. Now moving on, now the legs are the easiest part. So you would want to, and hopefully on camera, I'm doing this right. You would want to untab the legs, of course untab the side skirts, swivel down the feet and rotate them, and then rotate this little part here. And then you would want to make sure the knees are tabbed into, well, the shins are tabbed in. Do the same as well on the other side. Now moving on, so that completes this half. Then you would want to flip the wheels down, which I think is really unique. Move the arms out of the way and shift the arms forward. Then you would want to shift these arms up until they tab and lock into place. Shift them down, and then later shift these little gray pieces up here just to finish the thing. Then you would want to swivel the entire chest. I didn't really show that on camera, but you want to swivel the entire chest, move this thing up and flip it and tab it there. Moving on to the arms, you would want to swivel them and then untab this gray piece, flip out the hands, and then flip, and then just collapse the hands. And do the same on the other side. While also being careful because these things also do pop off. And then finally, untab his chest, flip his head up, and also make the camera. Flip this piece down, and then tab in the chest. So overall, transformation into robot mode is a little complicated, but after a while, it's very easy. So, yeah, there's transformation into robot mode. So, overall, is this figure worth buying? Yes. It doesn't, now granted, not the Buzzworthy version, but to my knowledge and from what I've seen, the Studio Series repack version is just that, a repackage, a reissue. In reality, it's the same thing. But overall, get this figure. Now, granted, there is that truck mode, which looks so hideous. But I believe there are some upgrade kits for it. Now, of course, I don't have any third-party figures or any of the, third-party or bootleg figures of this guy where they do improve it or they do upscale it and then do some things with it. Hell, I think they even did one in the Nemesis Prime colors, or wasn't that an official one? I don't know, but overall, in the end, it's still really good. There's so many things to like here. Granted, yes, I know, truck mode, bit of a 50-50. Accessories are very light, but I think it makes up for it with the very crisp painting and sculpting and the very nicely well done articulation. The transformation for this guy is very good. Granted, it can be a little bit lazy when it comes to the lower half, but overall, it's a very nicely well done figure in terms of transformation, especially if it's robot mode. So overall, it's probably my favorite Optimus Prime figure. Well, I'd say one of my favorites. I'd say in terms of my favorite Optimus Prime, and this might be a hot take, my favorite Optimus Prime figure is this Earthrise Optimus. But I do think this one is a very close contender as the best Optimus I own in my entire collection. So yeah, get this guy. Get the 100%. Just get the repack or the repackage, as of course it's a lot cheaper. But yeah, overall get it. I don't know how well the third-party ones are, but I suggest you just get this one instead. Even more, I really recommend as well get maybe the third-party kit, the upgrade kit from DNA Design, just to improve those legs and also improve the guns and everything. So yeah, it's awesome. I'm going to give him a solid 8.5 out of 10. Definitely worth it. Go get this guy. That's all I got to say. Go get him. He's because of that package refresh, there is no difficulty in finding him, so that's awesome. I'll probably leave a few links in the description for this guy, but overall, worth it. Worth every penny. So yeah, that's my review. Thanks for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the bell, and I will see you guys later. Bye-bye.